So I like to think of pregnancy as kind of a time machine, right? You get into it, you become pregnant, and suddenly your body's going through this marathon. You're suddenly putting it through all of these different physiological stressors. So all of these conditions that normally wouldn't be present in someone's life until like 10, 20 years show up. You get to go fast forward into the future and see all of the health challenges you might experience at risk for them. So moms that have diabetes, gestational diabetes, up to 7 out of 10 will go on to develop type 2 diabetes in the next 5 to 10 years.
Kari Cao, welcome to the show. I am truly honored to have you on today.
Thank you.
Your brand is really here to transform how women approach nutrition and wellness during the most important chapter of their lives. So I can't wait to dive in and hear more about you and RenewRx. To start with, can you maybe tell everyone a little bit more about your background and then the story behind RenewRx, why you started it, and what inspired you?
Yeah, so I'm a medical provider, a PA, working in family practice and mostly uninsured, underinsured, primarily Spanish-speaking population. And it was my dream job. I actually learned about it at my wedding night and applied the next day. And that's a whole other story. But I loved managing. I had 1,200 patients and absolutely loved just supporting and caring for these patients. And I had 15 minutes to support over 1,200 patients. And you have each patient coming in the room and you have a choice. Can I either give them really good care or can I stay on time? And you can't do both. And so what I love to do is like draw on the exam table of like, here's what's happening in your pathophysiology. Like, here's what's going on in your body. And here's how this medication works. And here's how this thing that is not working in your body, here's why. So I was really understanding the reasoning behind that. And then honestly got super burnt out because the system that we live in right now, it's very hard to be able to give the care you want to your patients, and ended up transitioning and doing a lot of home visits for patients. And that was the moment that I realized that how we were doing it in clinic was completely wrong, right? We make a judgment call off of a quick snapshot in a patient's life in an artificial setting, whereas when you see a patient in their home, you suddenly realize what are the things that they're really dealing with? What are the things that are the challenges that they're facing? So when I'm telling a patient healthy and exercise and they have no access to sidewalks or a grocery store nearby, that's not something that's a reality for them. And they're probably not going to tell me because they don't want to. It's very hard, I think, for patients oftentimes to stand up for what's really their reality and social determinants of health. So when I was furloughed during COVID, because I couldn't do home visits anymore, I went back to school and became a professionally trained chef with a nutritional focus. And that was kind of a turning point for me where really I saw food as medicine. And later on met my co-founder, Kari Cao, who is a certified nutritional practitioner and really focuses on behavior change. And for me, what I loved about her approach isn't about telling patients what not to eat or just simply giving them a diet plan and saying kind of good luck, but it was really like, what are the small tweaks we can make in your behavior to ultimately lead to better outcomes? And that was kind of the foundation of what we brought to RenewRx.
That's incredible. So what does RenewRx do for patients these days?
So RenewRx is a patient app, a medical provider dashboard, and tech-enabled coaching. So what does that mean? Basically, we take a patient's data, like what's going on with their body. So right now we're using a continuous glucose monitor or a finger stick glucose and measuring kind of what are specifically not only the trends in their data, but more importantly, what are the behavior trends that we're noticing that are causing these. So we also have an AI food tracker that looks at kind of what are the macronutrients that they're eating, what are their patterns that they're eating. And then in the near future, we can integrate like stress response, sleep, movement to really tell a better story of their data and use their data to tell a better story and understand more specifically what are the challenges that they're facing and then what specific program can we help with. So we work with a medical office. We're integrated into OBGYN practices and are kind of that extension of the care between visits. And we're starting with patients that have diabetes in pregnancy, and then we'll be able to expand to ultimately support all patients in pregnancy.
So right now, it's basically if you're diagnosed with, I think usually it's gestational diabetes, right? Maybe you can tell us more about that too. So usually that's kind of the time when the OB would introduce RenewRx and kind of offer it as a solution beyond the typical.
So we also help patients that have diabetes, pre-existing diabetes as well. But the majority of patients in pregnancy will actually develop diabetes. So I like to think of pregnancy as kind of a time machine, right? You get into it, you become pregnant, and suddenly your body's going through this marathon. And it's the most stressed the body will have been probably to date, right? You're suddenly putting it through all of these different physiological stressors. And then it also has to deliver a baby. So all of these conditions that normally wouldn't be present in someone's life until like 10, 20 years show up, right? So it's kind of an opportunity where you get to go fast forward into the future and see all of the health challenges you might experience. And then you deliver the baby and they go away, but you're still at risk for them. So moms that have diabetes, gestational diabetes, up to 7 out of 10 will go on to develop type 2 diabetes in the next 5 to 10 years. So it's not just like a short, like, oh, don't eat this while you're pregnant. It's
Yeah.
let's change your health patterns and what you're currently doing,
Mm.
ultimately to change your trajectory of health and that of your baby.
That's so interesting. I feel like it always kind of gets communicated as this like short-term thing. It's just because you're pregnant. But
Yeah.
you're saying that those women probably would have became diabetic anyway
Yes.
down the road. It was
Yes.
basically just an early indication, which was
Yeah, it's
established.
just this early stressor, right? Same thing with heart disease. And like with high blood pressure that develops, you can see women develop like preeclampsia, all of these things that then it's a risk factor in the future for developing cardiovascular disease. And what I see it is more, it's not necessarily a risk factor, but it's more of a warning sign that this is something that's kind of underlying that eventually will arise. It's just we're seeing it now because the body is so under so much stress.
Interesting. I feel like there's no awareness around that to really take that and take it seriously beyond pregnancy because the
Yes.
care also then ends with your pregnancy. It's like, okay, we
Yes.
were glad you were able to deliver the baby healthy, hopefully, but then you're kind of off on your own again. So I feel like
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
no awareness that this is an issue way beyond pregnancy and just an early indicator.
And honestly, how we see it is pregnancy is just really a entry point for us, like a for lifelong engagement, right? So if you can get someone at the time in their life where they're the most motivated they'll probably ever have been to care for themselves and they're the most connected to the medical system they'll probably have been to date, right? They're going to the doctor pretty much every week at the end,
Mhm.
sometimes twice a week when they have diabetes. And so this is a time where they're like, I want help. I want to change, but I don't know what to do. Like, where do I start? And for us, that's like, wow, this is like the light bulb moment where you can truly shape someone's future because you're setting them up for habits that they actually enjoy and they really are integrated into their own life.
Mhm.
And so for us, we've actually got all these moms. You know, we've helped over 200 moms so far. And my co-founder Kelly says she keeps getting from the moms of we created this thing called the renewed plate, but she keeps getting photos from them like postpartum, you know, even ones that are like a year postpartum, like, look, I'm still doing my renewed plate. Because the
That's
whole idea is like, let's
awesome.
just make it easy to look at your plate and say red, yellow, green. And then what can you add to it to make it a yellow plate from a red? Or what can you add from a yellow to turn it green?
That's amazing. I love that because that's really what it's about, right? The long-term effect, not just the
Yes.
short term. But maybe talking short term because it is the most motivated patients will ever be. Unfortunately, because a lot of times we don't care as much about ourselves as we care about our children, right?
Yes.
That's where it stems from. So maybe you can talk about like what it actually means and the stressor, what it can mean to the baby, and then how you can prevent that by really adjusting your lifestyle choices.
Yeah. So when a mom is pregnant, you test for diabetes at about 24 to 28 weeks. And the reason is the placenta is so the body is I mean, body is amazing, but the placenta is so smart. It's producing different hormones at different phases of pregnancy to ultimately give the baby what it needs. So in school, they always said that like the baby was like a little parasite. Like it was and literally your body is like, I'm going to, from day one, when you get pregnant, I'm going to prioritize this baby ahead of my own needs. Right. So it's preventing your body from getting glucose first. So what happens is the placenta produces hormones that give the baby all of the nutrients first, and then the mom will take what's next. And so because of that, the levels of glucose are high in the mom's bloodstream, and high levels of glucose are not good for a baby, just to be in general. But one of the most common complications is it's called macrosomia, which means like a big baby, heavier babies. So what they've been doing is trying to have babies born earlier, like 39 weeks, also doing C-sections because the baby's too large. But there's also studies now that show there's even a linkage between neurodivergence, like ADHD, and high glucose levels as well. And I don't know, have you ever worn a glucose monitor, like a continuous glucose monitor? No.
No.
So it's really cool. I highly recommend it. But if you wear one, and especially if you're pregnant, you can actually see patterns starting at about 13 weeks that can show that someone actually is probably going to become diabetic in the pregnancy. The problem is we're testing for it too late, and we're testing for the wrong thing. So we're testing for, does a patient's body produce enough insulin to respond to eating the equivalent of like nearly 30 jelly beans, and then an hour later checking. So so for people that are young, whose pancreas is working fine, their body is going to produce enough insulin, so they're going to pass the test and it's not going to be a problem. But you're not looking at like, what are their actual levels during the day? Are they actually getting the nutrients they need? Are they giving the baby the right ingredients ultimately to grow into a healthy baby? Or is what they're eating just constantly fluctuating their glucose levels? So by doing a continuous glucose monitor, especially earlier on in pregnancy, there's research that suggests you can actually really catch these people early. So that's where we really could be supportive, especially in the future, is before a patient even gets this diagnosis, people that are at risk, you can actually put a glucose monitor on them and say, okay, here, let's just look at what you're currently doing. How is your body responding? And then let's make changes to really optimize it.
And what would be those like early signs or indications for the doctor to recommend that? Is it weight gain? Is it like, what is it related to?
So when somebody gets into, there's like a whole list of like different risk factors for gestational diabetes. One of them is weight. So like a BMI that is classified as overweight, obese. Somebody that has a family history of diabetes, lower socioeconomic status is something that is a risk factor. So pretty much, honestly, everybody should be getting tested earlier on. Even honestly, just doing something called an A1C. There was research that I think Dr. Lynn Barber published that talks about the importance of just doing an A1C, which is a glucose test that looks at like kind of on average, what has your glucose level been over a 3-month period? And then you can see like, how are these patients entering pregnancy? What is their baseline? And then that can really help people understand ultimately, like, what are the things that we actually really need to give to them to support them.
That's incredible because the way you explained it, that it's actually done so wrong. Now it's like such an aha moment to me because as I eat very healthy. And so the biggest part to me was now you're making me drink the sugary
Yes.
drink. And I'm being so cautious of what I put in my body. And now you're forcing me to drink this. But
Mm-hmm.
then you're just testing how I react to it versus testing, do I have this issue because of how I've been eating?
Yeah,
Right?
and not even necessarily
Yeah.
how you've been eating, but it's more like your body is going to respond how it responds. So people
Yeah.
that eat really healthy, people that are, they still are at risk. So
Interesting.
there's so many people that they get this diagnosis and they're shocked and they're like, wait, but I've been eating really healthy. I'm a thin person. Like I'm not, but it's because once again, it's because of that test that you're doing, being able to see early on, like ultimately, how does your body respond? And are you at the optimal levels, which is like 63 to 140, pretty much staying there 90% of the time? That's when you can see, okay, your body is working well with this pregnancy and it's responding appropriately.
Okay.
And then
So
more importantly, like what are the things that spike you? And then how can we lower that impact? So for instance, we found There's the woman, I think the glucose goddess, that always talks about meal order. Have you heard of that?
No.
So the idea is like you eat your fibrous veggies first, then you eat
Hmm.
your protein, and then you eat your carbs. And you produce a little bit of insulin. Your body naturally produces some insulin right when you start eating. So by the time you actually eat the carbs at the end of the meal, then you'll start actually having enough carbohydrate, like insulin, to ultimately take those carbohydrates away so that your levels aren't going to be so high. And then same thing like going for a walk after you eat. So like there's
Hmm.
little tricks, even like cooking rice and putting it in the fridge, and then you create resistant starch, and then eating it the next day and warming it up. You're not going to have as much of a spike as if you ate fresh rice.
Interesting. So is it also that because you were saying and to understand what spikes you, so does it mean that different things spike different patients? It's not
Yes.
always the same. Okay.
Yes, and it's every patient responds so different. So that's why we focus on the coaching component of what we've created that is an extension of the care for the medical team. So it's not just giving the patient a bunch of data or giving the medical provider a bunch of data and saying, okay, go figure this out. It's more for this specific person, what is going on, and then what is the custom program that we can create for them that really supports them. And from a scalability standpoint, that's why the technology is so critical, is we can actually deliver these programs to the patient in their app. And so every day they have a new, like we call it a one thing program, where you focus on just one thing at a time. And the idea is not to overwhelm, but really small habit change.
Which makes it sustainable so that you
Yes.
can actually maintain it.
Yeah, and you enjoy it. Like we want it. Like I heard once, my teacher from NTI, Nutrition Therapy Institute, she was in an interview and she was talking about, someone asked her like, "What's your guilty pleasure?" She's like, "I don't call it that. Like, I don't want it to feel guilty. Like when I eat something, I want to enjoy it." So like for us, like you can have 3 red plates a week and enjoy them, right?
Yeah.
Like the whole point isn't to take things away, but it's like if we can enjoy that red plate, but maybe optimize it even more to make it so it's a yellow plate or a green plate, like even better. Your body will like it more, you'll feel better, and your taste buds will like it.
That's incredible to really, yeah, because otherwise it's just one thing. It's kind of like you sign up for a gym membership in the beginning of the year and then you never end up going because it's
Yes,
just too overwhelming and it's like a sacrifice you're not used to making. So if it's
yes.
small little steps and it doesn't mean you have to starve yourself
Yeah.
and make
And
crazy
our
changes.
goal, our goal is doing it's called a no filter food diary. So basically it's 3 days where a patient just takes a photo of what they're currently eating and they're wearing a glucose monitor. Nothing else. Like no judgment, don't change anything, no filter. And then we give them education about the renewed plate. We put it in like an edutaining way where it feels like it's information that your doctor wants you to know and learn, but it's not sterile like a handout from the
Mhm.
doctor, but it feels like it's something that you would find one of your friends would send you, is like, oh, here's some quick tips on how to do this. And it's like a 20-minute educational video, like interactive experience of like what is the renewed plate. And then you meet with a coach and you get a chance to really take those concepts and apply it to your own data. So you work with the coach and the coach is like, okay, choose 3 data points here that you want to look at, and let's look at what you ate, and then let's look at how your body reacted. Okay, great. Now let's see, how could we renew that? How could we turn it from red to yellow or yellow to green? And asking them like, what is the color of this plate? And so it makes it so it's super actionable. And then every week, based on whatever curriculum, whatever one thing pathway you're on, you get really curated specific education that supports you and doesn't overwhelm you.
That's amazing. So, like, how long does it take? Because also, imagine having another child running around. Like, what does it look like? How easy is it to use your app and really implement it in your life?
So we alternate visits with the medical office. So what happens is the patient will just be wearing the glucose monitor, so they no longer have to poke their finger 4 times a day. So it was that a patient would be eating and then set an alarm an hour later, poke their finger, write down what they ate, and then bring in the glucose log. Still, they're using paper ones. Bring it into the doctor, they review it, and then ultimately they say, okay, well, I see like last Tuesday you were at, a little high. What happened here? Okay, well, maybe next week don't do that. Now it's like you see real time, oh wow, this food like really impacted me, I'm starting to spike now, I'm going to go on a walk. or I'm going to go do something to like counteract this in real time. You can see that. And as far as like a busy mom, our goal is to make it so they don't have to go to so many appointments, and that this can really be something that's delivered through their own provider as an extension. So we collaborate with the medical office where we're alternating visits as long as they're controlled and the provider feels comfortable with that. So we'll see them one week and then the provider will see them another week. So it takes the place of one of their appointments. And it makes it so that if they're seeing a specialist, they're not having to go in and pay for a copay. They're, the chances of C-section and the NICU stay are significantly lower. I think it's like 14% rate of C-section instead of 62 when you're uncontrolled diabetes.
That's incredible.
So it's a pretty drastic difference just by helping them.
Because you can make changes in real time, right? And then therefore really help instead of just saying week to week, oh, what did I do there? I don't remember. Yeah.
And if we notice like a trend is starting to happen where like 3 days in a row, a mom's fasting glucose is elevated, let's say. And we, the coach will then reach out to her. Hey, I'm noticing this is happening. Like, let's try X, Y, and Z. Let's try a high protein snack before bed, or, like seeing what is maybe the cause. And then if it's not getting better, alerting the medical provider sooner so that she can actually get put on insulin because her body's not producing enough insulin itself.
Okay. Wow.
And one of the common mistakes that we hear from a lot of people that aren't familiar with this is like looking at not using insulin as like a measure of success. And it honestly shouldn't be, because your body, when you're pregnant, isn't producing enough insulin enough already. It's more catching it when it's starting to become a problem. So catching when the mom's body isn't producing enough insulin. Like you can see she's eating great. Her body's responding well to the food. But at night, her fastings, her body's just not producing enough insulin. So getting her on that sooner is helping mom and baby.
Okay, that's really insightful. That's amazing.
Because it's such a patient. One of the things we really have to do is help the patients really understand, like, you are doing everything you can, but your body is under so much stress.
And that's probably important too, because obviously, like, already as a mom, you have so much pressure on you and you put so much weight on yourself while you're pregnant and then becoming a mom. And so to really kind of give this like, hey, you're doing your best, but sometimes we need to help your body. And it's just a matter of finding out, are these lifestyle changes enough, or does it need more support?
Exactly. And there's so much blame. Like when we get our first call we have with the patients, it's literally geared towards just letting them like vent and feel frustrated and get this out, because like they were told oftentimes like you failed this test, like you have this condition, it's your fault. Like not obviously told that, but like that's what they're internalizing. And so just giving them the space to be like, oh wait, this isn't my fault. Like I didn't do this to my baby. Like that is huge.
So what does the process look like from being like onboarded? You say there's like a first call, actually like an in-person with a coach?
Yeah. So what happens is right now we're working with a specialist office. So it depends on if we're with a specialist or we're with a general OB group. But with the specialist, the patient will call up because they got referred to see their office. And oftentimes there's no available appointments for like a week or two. They're trying as hard as they can to get patients in, but this access is so low. So a patient would then have an appointment with their medical provider. And then at that point they would, get the glucose monitor and learn about nutrition. And by that point, they're probably at 30 weeks pregnant. With us, the patient gets referred, and then on the same day or the next day, they get a call with RenewRx. So they call up the office and they say, hey, I got referred to your office for my condition. I need an appointment. And the front desk says, great, we have an appointment with the medical provider, in 2 weeks or later this week. And we want to help you today. So we're going to get you scheduled with RenewRx. They're our partner to really support you with lifestyle and nutrition. We're going to get you scheduled today or tomorrow. And that way you can get not only started on the program, but also starting to collect your data. So by the time you see the medical provider, they have not only all your data, but you feel really comfortable because you're starting on a program.
That's amazing. So then already the provider has the log from the previous week.
Exactly.
Okay.
Versus so like the very first visit, they're trying to just like get a basic understanding, and they're like, okay, well, here's your log. Like, let me have you come back then.
Yeah.
But now it's like they're starting ahead of the curve.
Because otherwise you're already like 3 weeks out basically by the time you
Exactly.
finally have the appointment, and then another week of
Yeah.
first creating the log. Okay.
Yeah. And the
That's,
longer the
yeah,
baby is like bathing in glucose, the more damage that there is.
that's maybe actually, can you just give a few examples of the damage that it has for babies?
With like, I mean, we talked about like with the macrosomia. I mean, the one of the worst ones is like a stillborn, which is like very uncontrolled diabetes. It's something that is, patients that are at risk for, but oftentimes now with modern medicine, you're able to catch it pretty early. Um, and then talking about, like we said, that the neurodivergence, that's one for sure. There's just like other developmental problems as well. To be honest, I can't remember like the specific,
But it's
but
pretty severe. Yeah.
it's more like, there's also a lot of studies that show pediatric obesity occurs as a result of like they're at risk of it, because when a mom has gestational diabetes, there's even also, yeah, preterm labor, things like that as well.
And you were saying earlier too, like the induction at 39 weeks, which is
Yes.
more and more common.
Yes.
Okay. So when it, I mean, at this point, I'm almost like, why wouldn't they introduce you earlier, right? Why do they wait until week 23, 24 to have this test and then do it? I hope that in the future, maybe that's something that will
Yeah, I
actually be
think that,
established earlier.
yeah, and
Yeah.
the benefit of medicine, the way it's done, is it's very evidence based, right? So they're not going to just go off of a hunch like, I think that this should be, so let's change the standards. It's like there has to be enough research that shows these are the benefits and these are the complications of waiting too long, and this is the benefit of doing it earlier. So you
Hmm.
actually have to have some sort of a research institution or somebody paying for the study to do it
Yeah.
earlier to then say the diagnosis. So there's the thing that I love about the scientific community is it's everybody shares everything. So you publish a paper with the idea of like sharing your information, and then you take someone's paper and you're like, they came up with X, Y, and Z, but they're citing that they're saying that there's still research to be done in this area. That's
Hmm.
what I'm going to do research on. And so you're constantly evolving through the scientific community rather than saying, okay, I have to do it all on my own.
That's incredible. So just kind of going back to your app. So it's an app, but when they sign up, they also get a physical glucose monitor like sent in the mail, or how does it look like?
We are device agnostic, which is a
Okay.
fancy way of saying we are a software, but we do not create hardware. So anyone can plug in any device that they have into
Okay.
it. So a continuous glucose monitor there's some that are available over the counter that someone can purchase on their own. And then
Hmm.
there's other ones that are available with a prescription. There's even a coupon for like a free trial for a continuous glucose monitor. There's a lot of ways to be able to get it.
Okay.
And then patients can also do a finger stick glucose if they would prefer that instead, or if insurance is not able to cover a glucose monitor. But our services are all covered by insurance. And so the office bills the insurance company for our services. And we've seen a pretty significant reimbursement to the practice. And the benefit with that is because prenatal care reimbursement isn't available until after delivery. So a provider is providing, 7, 8 months of care for this patient, and the office isn't actually getting paid until after they have the baby. So that's also then no resources available to support these patients. So now we're able to bring them a brand new revenue stream that they haven't had access to before.
Hmm.
Suddenly now the ability to bring in and maybe extra staff or other resources or things to help these patients is really, I think, what will help with burnout.
That's incredible, because what has been your kind of like, what has been the response from the medical offices? Are they excited about it? Are they a little bit resistant? Like, what is kind of the common?
Yeah, I mean, the one that's working with us right now. So they're obstetrics of Colorado, and they have multiple locations. We're helping right now, I think, about 75 patients within all of their practices, and we'll be expanding to support patients that have Medicaid as well, because now Colorado is Medicaid is covering the services that we provide, which is huge. And we are going to be expanding with them nationally. So talking to corporate about an enterprise solution and being able to scale with them, because they're the largest high risk OB group in the country. So scaling with them nationally will be such an incredible offering for their patients.
That's amazing. It basically doesn't mean any additional work for the medical offices. Instead, it means
No, it's the opposite. Yeah.
it's the opposite. It's less work and it's better care for their patients and an additional income stream. It sounds like
Exactly. So we say our slogan is more, what is it? Less work, more care, more revenue.
I mean, it sounds like a no-brainer for
I know.
everyone to jump on, right?
That's why everyone's like, okay, wait, but is it too good to be true? You're like, no,
Yeah.
actually, it's really not. That's why like I created this because as a clinician, I saw just us burning out, wanting to help our patients. And then I saw my sister's experience when she was diagnosed with gestational diabetes. And I didn't find this out until years later when I was trying to figure out what patient population I should support. But she
Mhm.
told me, like, hey, you failed me. You let me down. Like, I called you when I got this diagnosis. You were my first call and you weren't able to help me. Like, you just gave me like generic things to do and told me to check my glucose and don't eat these foods and carb count. And you didn't give me like a roadmap of what to do.
Yeah.
And for me, that was like, wow, like I didn't realize how much I'm letting my patients down.
Yeah. Because now, like using the app, there's really like a detailed plan to say, cut these things out. These things are the ones that actually spike it in your special body. It's not general. It's like everything is personalized, right? That's a big, like one of the big
So,
differences.
yeah. And so we have to be careful about how we do things like in the app on its own versus with a human because we're a clinical decision support system. We're not a software as a medical device. That's something that we're exploring. But basically, one is regulated by the FDA and doesn't require a human, and the other one does. And so, a clinical decision support system, that's why the coaching is so important. And that's also why the coaching drives like 80% of the revenue we bring the practice because
Mhm.
without the coaching, there isn't access to these different codes that the insurance gets, the office bills insurance. So it's a huge revenue driver and it provides that personalized support. But it also allows us to understand really what are the things that, if we were to make this an automated platform, what would it look like and what would the things need to be that we provide? So a lot of things that are in the app are made sure that they're done very intentionally, but it's not the app saying like do this or don't do this. It's more things from the coach and the app giving the patient the information. Like your glucose is going up, here's some articles about benefits of walking, or your coach has recommended going walking after your meals. So here's something, here's some good music to listen to or something like that.
Okay, so they have like weekly calls with the coach, and the coach kind of like goes through the data that was collected during like in the last week. Is that how I can imagine it?
Yeah, so the coach will be, especially like the off weeks where they're seeing the medical provider, this coach will still check in on the dashboard and they'll get alerted if there's something that needs to be addressed sooner. And then they're just sending we also don't want to be intrusive. Like these moms are busy,
Yeah.
right? So our goal is like understand what their preference is for their level of support. Some moms want to be in touch with their coach every day. So they'll be
Mhm.
messaging them through the app. Other
Okay, and that's
other patients
possible
are
if they want that.
yeah, and other patients are like, I'm good. Like, I just, like check in on me, like whenever. Some people are like, I want help when I go to a restaurant. Let me send you a picture of the menu. You can give me some support with that.
There's
So,
live support for when you're in the restaurant.
yeah. So, yeah,
That's
it's, I mean,
incredible.
it's, we don't want to guarantee that for everybody, but that's what we're able to do.
Yeah.
And then in the
Wow.
future, those are things that can be automated.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And I think you mentioned kind of like going into like the future, that soon you will have kind of like a plate scanner that can actually help you more.
Yeah. That's the goal is, I have to be careful about kind of all the things that we're talking about for the
Yeah,
future, but I encourage people to kind of tune in and once we create things, then I can share more.
that's awesome. So, what are any of the challenges that you're experiencing right now?
I mean, just being a first time founder, there's so like I think one of the benefits honestly of not gone the business route and starting this, like seeing a problem, addressing it head on and saying I'm going to create a solution, is I feel super comfortable saying I don't know anything. Like going to all these people that are experts in business or experts in sales or experts in marketing and saying like teach me, like how do I solve this problem? And so coming at this with a naivety perspective and or a perspective of naivety, and just that I'm very comfortable saying like I don't know, or I don't know that I don't what I don't know. And getting really good mentors has been incredible for me. And
Yeah.
like, so we're in MedTech Innovator right now, which is the most competitive MedTech accelerator program in the country. So you can kind of think of it like a crash course mini fellowship for a 4-month period on how do you take your company to be the most investable and the most acquirable in medtech as possible. So what are the things that you need to do to position yourself to ultimately be able to create either a med tech device or scale what you've created?
It's incredible. So the goal really is to just get in touch with more medical offices, roll this
Yes.
out nationwide, and make it accessible to
Yeah,
everyone.
our biggest challenge, honestly, is finding practices right now that want, like, because they, you message them and they're like, yeah, I get a sales call every day. Like, if not, but us actually getting places that are saying, wow, I really want to try this. Like, this sounds amazing. And having patients going into their doctor and saying, I really want to try RenewRx. This is something that, my insurance can cover if you subscribe. And
Yeah.
then, if they get their doctor to subscribe, then yes, we can definitely provide it to them.
Okay. So that's basically like another way to get the patients to request it and demand it.
Yes.
Okay. All
Yes.
right. So raising the awareness on that end would help as well.
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
So basically, it can be accessible to anyone, to any, like if I hear about this and I get diagnosed, I can go to my OB and say, hey, I heard about this and I would like to use it, and they should be able to prescribe it to me.
Yeah, we're trying to create a program ultimately to let offices actually try it. So if a
Yeah,
patient goes in and says, "Hey, I want to try this out," and then their doctor reaches out to us, we can find a way to work with them and just let them do like a trial, even if the office isn't necessarily subscribed, just to see like if this is something that would be worthwhile for that practice.
that's incredible. I love that. Okay,
Yeah,
let's
I mean
see.
our
Everyone.
goal is like if we can get, like, I think, my sister says it so well. Like, this is like such a pay it forward condition
Yeah.
where anyone that gets this diagnosis is like, okay, I don't want anyone to go through what I just did. Like, let me help.
Hmm.
So the more
Yeah.
moms that can help us to get this to their OBs or their specialists or even endocrinologists, family medicine doctors, the more people that they can help.
Because it's also something that is almost like how you were saying earlier, like you failed the test. So it's almost
Yes,
something that just like it's like this shame, this embarrassment around it versus just like raising awareness and say, how can we help and how can we help
yeah,
forward? That's
exactly, exactly.
incredible. Okay, well, thank you so much. So where if I get diagnosed, if a friend gets diagnosed, where do they go? How do they find you? What are their first steps?
Yeah, so our website is renewrx.health, and we also we're on LinkedIn, we're on Instagram, we're going to be eventually on TikTok. We're going to be creating a thing called Renew My Recipe, where it's a competition where people can kind of submit their favorite recipes, and then we'll choose 3, and then ultimately the audience will choose one, and then that person will get, a gift card or something that they won, and then we'll help them learn how, through like a live cooking experience with everybody, like how do you take that recipe that wasn't so great and you renew it.
That's awesome. I love how you're gamifying it and just
i'm,
making it
I'm
so much
trying, yeah,
easier.
because it's not fun to like make change.
Yeah,
You got to
yeah,
make it
exactly.
more fun.
It needs to be like it needs to be fun and entertaining and engaging. Otherwise, you just at least won't make long-lasting change, and
Yeah,
that's your goal, right? The goal is
exactly,
beyond pregnancy, not just during pregnancy, which obviously is the most important, but like also take care of yourself as like a mom in the future.
exactly. It was really, really great. I appreciate the opportunity.
I can't wait to see what's next for you.